This is Charter California Edition. I'm your host, Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're with us. Our guest today is Art Aguilar. He is the general manager of the Central Basin Municipal Water District, which is what?
Well, it's a lot of things, but mostly it's a groundwater manager for the Southeast Los Angeles County in a geographical location called the Central Basin. It's a matter of geology and where the water is and that sort. The basin has been around for a long time.
What's interesting, though, about water is there are a lot of different entities that help to get water to our tap. And when I think of these different entities, I think of Municipal Water District, I think of Department of Water Resources, and candidly, I don't know who's what and who's doing where and how and what and which.
Well, actually, if we're doing our job the best, you should hear about us very little.
Okay.
This is our 60th anniversary, and
Right.
people have been looking at us lately, but we bring the water into the area and provide it to all the little water districts that really are basically the old land grants from Mexico and all that sort, and they deliver the water, and that is the one that the people pay their rates to, direct delivery.
You mentioned that we've been hearing a lot about water lately, and it is true on a variety of fronts. It's, are we going to have a water bond on the ballot? We thought we would have it a couple of years ago. It's supposed to be on the ballot this November. We don't know if it will be. We also have been hearing a lot about it because our water rates seem to be going up and no one knows why. What can you tell us about why water rates are rising before we talk about how they're not rising as a result of an effort you recently announced in April?
Well, the water rates are rising because at the end level, at the very end, the investor-owned utilities, investor-owned water districts have been charging a great deal for the water. They've been going to the Public Utilities Commission and getting approval to raise their rates for infrastructure improvement.
What's an example of an investor-owned utility versus a, public utility?
Well, they have to return a certain amount. It's much like Edison,
Right.
where they return a little bit of, they return...
So is Edison investor-owned?
Edison is an investor-owned electrical company. There are investor-owned water companies as well.
Right.
And those water companies promise a rate of return to their investors.
Right.
And that is their primary focus.
And an example of a publicly owned utility would be Los
city.
Angeles Department of Water and Power.
Department of Water and Power, the city that you may live in, if they run their own company.
And it really is just a fluke of geography. I mean, if you happen to live in the city of Los Angeles, you have DWP. If you don't, you may have Edison.
No, not Edison. You would have Golden State Water. You would have Cal Water. But you could also have the city of Downey has their own water department, city of Southgate and the like. And there are a lot of small ones as well, different ownership. And you could take a whole show on just the ownership of those sort of things.
Right.
There are mutual water districts and other things. But they charge the end rate to the customer.
Now, I know that in April, your district announced that it was freezing rates.
Yes.
Explain why you made that announcement. What was the importance of that announcement?
Well, we are in a very economically disadvantaged area. And we already have the lowest rates of anybody in the area. Our rates are lower than any of the other suppliers that come down the line from start to the very end delivery. We're the lowest. But we felt that something had to be done to let the people know that we care about what was happening to them. We were hearing of people that had water bills of $400 a month, $500 a month. And we thought, what can we do to help them and to show the other people how difficult it is for them?
At the same time, part of the challenge now is, water's worth fighting over apparently, and there are a lot of fights going on in Sacramento about who should control certain conveyances of water and how it's delivered. And right in this community, we have the Central Basin Municipal Water District fighting with the Water Replenishment District of Southern California. It all seems like a lot of letters to me, but it's gotten really nasty.
It really has, and when we announced our freeze, I also did an op-ed piece,
Right.
and basically said, this doesn't help anybody. For us to be fighting back and forth doesn't help us all. What we've got to do is we have to come together and say, okay, we're best equipped to do this, and our legislation...
What are you fighting over?
Fighting over control. It's always over control. And to our way of thinking, it's over supply. What should we do to balance the supply and balance the cost so that we can provide the lowest cost water all the time to the basin.
But it's gotten so severe and so serious that there's a measure in the state Senate that's percolating, if I can use that cliche,
good one.
that I guess would strip some power from the Central Basin in favor of the water replenishment district, but yet there was a competing bill that would have done the opposite. And
And it's just a matter of upsetting what has been there for ages and for years of people that control it. And when you control the water, if you're the only one in town, the only game in town, or the biggest game in town, you're going to be handing out contracts to people.
Right.
You're going to be supporting a heck of a lot of companies and all that. And that's okay. Well, I understand that. That's free enterprise and all. We believe that the first and foremost interest should be in the end user and the customer. And we are fighting to have a system where we can bring water in when it's less expensive, when it's readily available, like last year, and then sell it to our customers at a lower rate.
But it seems as if this bill, I believe, and I'm not a water expert, focuses on storage and groundwater storage, and it would allow only the water replenishment district to store, not the Central Basin. Why? What's the?
We don't understand why, because there already is within the acts upon which we're created, the water replenishment district cannot store above what is called the adjudicated line. They have a limit as to how much water they can store, and for replenishment purposes only. Their rate can only be used to buy replenishment water.
Replenishment means?
That's to help replenish the water that was taken out, pumped out by the other entities.
Was groundwater.
Was groundwater that was granted to them under water rights. What we're saying is the area between that line and the surface has over 300,000 acre feet, a lot of water, and that is a public resource. That should be utilized by the public.
And the public includes the Central Basin?
Central Basin. What we're trying to do, and this is unheard of, we're not trying to run it. Most of the past efforts have been who's going to run it. We said we did an environmental impact study on our own, and now we're in the part where we're talking about governance, and we're saying, okay, come, let's get together and let's figure out how to run this thing together. Let's figure out who does what. Instead of who controls it, let's all control it.
But what's happening with the state legislation then? I mean, wouldn't that upset the apple cart?
It certainly would, and it would mean that higher cost water would be going into this community forever. And you're talking about a community that is one of the most disadvantaged communities in the state and probably in the nation.
But in the final analysis, there's been litigation, there's been mediation, there's been legislation, and are we taking our eye off the prize, which is better groundwater storage?
Agreed. And that's exactly what we would like. There's nothing I would like better than to be able to tell all my lawyers within the next week or two, hey, we're done. We've decided that we're going to work together and we're going to negotiate this out.
And the irony is, I guess at one time the two districts were joined.
There was West Basin, Central Basin, and then the Water Replenishment District was born out of those two. So that actually it came last. And it was merely to do replenishment. It was really just an accounting function. That's all it was. And then one day somebody decided, let's have a board, let's have an election, and go from there.
And the tragedy of it all is that Southern California is water poor vis-a-vis Northern California. So they're laughing, all the way to, their water wells, where we're struggling to get water out of the Colorado or from Northern California. I mean, we really face tremendous challenges.
Yeah, and I think the committee, although they did a very good job trying to understand it, the committee didn't quite understand
You
this.
mean the Senate committee?
The Senate committee. This isn't Northern California. This is Southern California. We're talking about a scarce resource, and we're trying to save and protect as much of that scarce resource as we could and try to make it as inexpensive as possible.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I'm hoping that where we go from here is we finally sit down at a table and say, look, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what we're supposed to do. Let's get the cities and all the other interested parties, privates, everybody, and let's figure out how we're going to manage this thing. Because the real crime here is that we missed an opportunity a year ago to buy water at a very inexpensive rate after the rainstorms and the snowstorms that we had, because we didn't have a storage system going. We could have brought water in for half the price of what we have to charge now.
Will you come back and tell us more about this? It's a very important issue to Southern California. Very
Absolutely.
important. His name is Art Aguilar. He is the general manager of the Central Basin Municipal Water District. When we come back, we'll be speaking with a trailblazing athlete. Her name is Ann Myers Drysdale. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
How many people living today live in areas of physical water scarcity? 500 million, 900 million, 1.2 billion, or 1.7 billion? According to the United Nations, 1.2 billion people, or almost 1/5 of the world's population, live in areas of physical water scarcity.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. I am really glad you're here with us. We are speaking with Ann Myers Drysdale. She is a real trailblazer in female athletics and really athletics, period. She recently released this book. It's called You Let Some Girl Beat You, and I love the title of the book. As the father of 2 daughters, you know it well. My eldest daughter is, I guess you can say, a soccer star, at least she is in my mind. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Brad.
it. And actually, thank you for bringing a silver medal. Anne won a silver medal in the 1976 Olympics. in
Very proud of it.
basketball,
Very
as
proud.
you should be. I want to talk to you about you and some of your tremendous accomplishments as we look towards the 40th anniversary of Title IX. We'll get there in a moment.
Well, for me, being in the right place at the right time.
Oh, talent was there,
well,
but be that as it
sure,
may.
a lot of hard work. I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters, and my parents are from the Midwest. They met at Milwaukee, at Marquette. My dad played
Sure.
basketball at Marquette, and moved out to Southern California. And it was always very competitive, and certainly sports being a big part of my dad's life. And my
Right.
mom played some sports, but with that kind of energy, we were always outside playing, and certainly being very competitive.
And you wound up with some tremendous accolades, including being the first woman at UCLA to be signed to a 4-year athletic scholarship.
I was. Again, I talk about timing, but my brother David was at UCLA at the time, playing for Coach John Wooden,
Right, sure.
winning national championships. And it was close enough to home. Obviously, having a free education paid for through athletics was tremendous. And Title IX made that happen.
And we're going to talk about Title IX momentarily, but first I want to talk about another accomplishment of yours, and that was in 1979. It was with a team named the Indiana Pacers, and that would be an all-male team. That would be an all-male basketball team. What happened in 1979 to Ann Myers Drysdale?
Well, just leading up to that with UCLA and
Right.
playing in the Olympics, 1976 was the first year they had women's basketball in
And
the
getting
Olympics.
a silver medal.
And it was very important because we were the first in the United States for that. And my brother David at UCLA with Coach Wooden, and then my senior year we won a national championship. Then the WBL, which was the very first women's pro league here in this country, I was the #1 pick. But I wanted to go to the 1980 Olympics, and
Understand.
so you had to stay amateur. I received a call out of the blue from the new owner, Sam Nassi of the Indiana Pacers, and said, "How would you like to try it in the NBA?" I'm like, who is this
Who is
guy?
this exactly?
You know? And my brother David was already playing in the NBA.
Where was he playing?
He was in the trade. He was drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers.
Got it.
And was in the trade that brought Kareem to
kidding.
Los Angeles. So David went and played in Milwaukee for 5
Got
years.
it. Which is nice.
Ironic,
Right.
where my mom
Exactly.
and dad were from.
Right.
And so when Sam called, I was like, really? What,
Who is
Because
this?
I was
Right.
I was focused on the
Of course.
Olympics and then going into the WBL. But certainly when this opportunity came, a lot of people tried to talk me out of it. 5 years earlier, when I was a senior in high school, I was going to play on the boys varsity team, and I had played summer league, and a lot of people talked me out of it, and I thought,
I'm going to try this.
somebody gave me another chance,
Right.
and I'm going to do it.
And so you did try out.
I did try out. It was 3 days of practice, rookies and free agents. I was signed as a free agent. I did not get drafted. And so we had 2 days. And mentally, emotionally, physically, it was the best I was ever prepared to play the game. I had a lot of people get me ready for that opportunity. And unfortunately, for me, it didn't work out to continue playing. I think the coaches felt that they liked my drive, they liked my ability to understand the game, but felt that maybe I was too small
God, I
or too
wish it
slow.
happened. I wish it happened
it
on
was
so many levels.
Yeah.
But the good news is today my daughters have opportunities in large part because of a law that was passed in 1972, 40 years ago. It's known as Title IX. What is Title IX, and why are you celebrating its 40th anniversary?
Title IX initially was made as a bill to have equal pay for teachers, for female teachers against male teachers. And yet today's day and age, whether you're a teacher or anything else in this country, women still make 77 cents to the dollar than men do.
We've heard that.
So, but that's what that bill was initially done for,
Right.
Title IX. But it's become the calling card for women in sports. And it's given women and young girls an opportunity not only to get an education through athletics, but to compete, just to go out there and compete.
It is huge. I mean, I didn't realize this. I'm a bit younger than you. I don't know how much, but be that as it may. I mean, when I was in school, there was really not much of a question that girls and boys athletics would be at some level on par. But even today, in a post-Title IX world, there are places, I mean, I have a friend who runs the California Women's Law Center, and a lot of the work that she does is making sure that female athletic programs and male athletic programs are treated equally.
Well, what's very difficult to understand, a lot of men are very upset because men's sports have gone by the wayside, whether it be wrestling, gymnastics, water polo, and so forth. And even before Title IX, the main money maker has been men's football.
Right.
And a lot of men's basketball programs. And not all schools do have football, and if it's a major Division I program, it will. So that football and men's basketball have been subsidizing baseball, softball, volleyball, crew, whatever the sport is. So what it says, if basketball has 15 scholarships in men's sports, women get 15 scholarships. So it's an equalization. So when football takes 85 to 100 scholarships, then you have to equal out on the other side with women's sports. So if football only took 50 scholarships or 45, then they could probably subsidize the other men's sports.
So how does it work then? Because I do know there is controversy surrounding it.
Yeah.
So what happens?
What happens is that some of the men lose out because of their sports.
Right.
And so they're upset about that. But honestly, there's a lot of universities in this land that are not in compliance with Title IX.
I want to talk about this book. Your last name, at least your last name through marriage, is legendary. Don Drysdale, we are in Los Angeles now, your late husband. He left us entirely too early, in his 50s. What a storied relationship you and Don had. And that's part of what we read in this book, You Let Some Girl Beat You. Talk to me about this book.
Well, the book has been a long time coming. A lot of people have asked me because of the things that have happened in my life, whether it be at UCLA, the Olympics, the Superstars where I met Don,
right.
The tryout with the Pacers, my family and so forth.
Being a sportscaster in countless Olympics.
But, you know, and I'm a pretty private person, so it was very difficult to write this book in a lot of ways. And the last 2 years, I started to grind it out with Joni Ravino, who's helped write it with me, and was able to pull a lot of things out. Certainly my relationship with Don is very personal, and our children. But
who lost their father at a very young age, 5, 3, and 3 months.
Right, right. But again, family, Don's family. He has a daughter from his first marriage. Kelly has been very helpful with the kids. I mean, she's got 2 brothers and a sister, and she's been wonderful. And Don's sister and his folks have passed away, but my side of the family, and certainly you can't, in my opinion, can't do a whole lot without faith, family, and friends to get through things.
Well stated. Tell me about the title. It says something.
Says
Let a
something.
girl beat you.
Yeah.
It says something. Tell me about the title.
Well, certainly when growing up and competing against boys, and certainly I think it's more difficult on the guys saying, well, you let some girl beat you, and my whole point was, you know, I'm just doing something I love. Same thing you are. You know, if a guy's out there playing basketball, or if we're playing over the line, and we're all out there having a good time. And I never looked at a gender team. I'd hear parents say, you're going to let a girl beat you? And
unacceptable.
So it's tough, and I still hear it today, not as much, hopefully, and hopefully that's changing.
You know what I hate? Don't cry like a girl. Ooh, I hate
There's
when
always
dads say that
or throw
to their
like a girl.
boys.
And I don't think you can say those comments anymore, because we know, I think we live in an era with so much that's going on in the world that there's nothing wrong with showing emotion from either gender.
You are an inspiration. I am so glad you joined us. I congratulate you on all your successes. I cannot wait to read this book, and I urge you to read it as well. You Let Some Girl Beat You, as I drop it. Her name is Ann Myers Drysdale.
I'm not passing you the ball.
No, not at all. You wouldn't want to. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
In the 1976 Montreal Olympics, Ann Myers Drysdale played on the United States women's basketball team and took home a silver medal. What country took home the gold? The Soviet Union's women's basketball team won the gold medal in the 1976 Montreal Olympics.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Now we're joined by Paul Little. Mr. Little is the president and CEO of the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce. And I wanted to bring Paul back on the program to talk not only about the upcoming inaugural gala for the Pasadena Chamber, but about the power of the chamber movement. You served 12 years on the Pasadena City Council, so you know politics well. And now you're, one could argue, on the other side as the president of the chamber. Talk to me about the importance of chambers generally as the current chairman and as a former council member.
Well, it's not as different as you might think, at least some
have
aspects.
It, right.
Some aspects. As a council member in Pasadena, you represent a constituency. As the CEO of the chamber, I represent a constituency, different constituency with different interests. But at least in advocacy, I am. The mouthpiece, in a sense, of the chamber. But there's a whole lot more that goes on with chambers. We're very much we're a member organization. People pay money to be a member of the chamber. What we do is look back at them and say, you've invested in us. Our investment back in you is supporting your prosperity, however you define that. And it's interesting because we have 1,250 to 1,400 members. Very large.
That's a big number for a city that is medium sized.
Yeah, we're 137,000 people in Pasadena. And we have one of our members sends rockets to Mars, and another one
holds parades and holds football contests,
and all the way down to the guy that works on my car, who's a one-man operation. So and most of our members are small business. So a lot of what we do is supporting the activities of small businesses in a lot of different ways.
What about the rap, though, that chambers are too myopic? They're too focused just on business interests, and they don't focus on the bigger picture, the greater needs of the community, which should include parks, the environment, education, whatever it may be. I'm not saying I agree with that, I'm just saying what you think.
And interesting that we are the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce and Civic Association. So, and a lot of the stuff that was focused on was really about over the almost 125-year history of the chamber. The Pasadena Chamber advocated for and got the bond passed to build the Colorado Street Bridge to connect across the Arroyo. The chamber was actually the first organization to suggest that there should be a citizen commission in Pasadena, and the suggestion was that commission should be a beautification commission on trees in downtown.
What's interesting, and I wonder if this really is the case, but I think local chambers may have a certain flavor that's not necessarily political, but more civic minded. But when you think about the California Chamber of Commerce, the United States Chamber of Commerce, I think they're seen as so monolithic in their view that they are pro-business, whatever that may mean. But that tends to mean support for a certain political party, for a certain political philosophy. And so does that hamper you, or you're really focused on the parochial interest in the best sense?
Yeah, I mean, even legislatively, when we take positions on things, the first benchmark is there an impact on either member businesses or the economy in Pasadena, in the Pasadena area? We actually are, interestingly enough, are not a member of the U.S. Chamber. We're not a member of the California Chamber.
Really? Why?
Because they take positions and spend money in political campaigns in ways that we don't necessarily agree with. They're not going to miss us.
Pasadena's a major city. I mean, if you think about, although in numbers it may not be that large, but symbolically, Pasadena is a power player.
Well, we're also very diverse. So you can't look at my membership, my board, any of us, even my staff, and say, they're all Republicans, they're all Democrats, they're going to support this, they're going to support that. We really look on a case-by-case basis. We do not support individual candidates for office, for example.
Do other chambers?
Some do and some don't.
And
some have political action committees that actually support campaigns. We don't do that. We find that it's best to stay out of that and to work with the people who are elected.
And what's interesting about Pasadena specifically is politically it's a community in transition. When I was growing up, Pasadena was seen as very right of center, and now I think it's fair to say that Pasadena is center to center left. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, politically, Pasadena has seen a shift from pretty solidly Republican to now pretty solidly Democrat when you look at the whole
Now, is that due to an
area.
increase in diversity, ethnic diversity, or is that due to an increase of, suburbanization? You have more people moving into Pasadena, so it's not kind of the old money that was seen as more affiliated with conservative Republican causes.
Both.
Both, yes.
Yeah, both, I think. And just, and also kind of Pasadena is a very hands-on kind of
Sure.
community. I always joke that anybody who gets elected to the city council is a Democrat no matter what, because you're really about service to the community.
interesting, right. Potholes.
Right. Well, potholes, but also making sure that everybody has the services they need and that kind of stuff. Is not always, everybody wants a balanced budget, but it's not about, necessarily pushing spending down and things like that. So it's kind of interesting.
So how has the movement done over the last few years where we've faced difficult economic times? Pasadena has done all right, but generally speaking, the region's been hit pretty hard.
The economy in Pasadena, it's a very diverse economy. So even, our one of our members, started the whole balance tipping toward recession. IndyMac Bank, when they collapsed,
Right, of
was
course.
one of ours.
Of course.
But the Pasadena economy, even though we've seen some glitches, that didn't collapse the economy. Didn't.
How important is the Rose Bowl, the Rose Parade to Pasadena?
Oh, it's hugely important. Those are
But in terms of the economic contribution,
millions and millions of dollars.
that one day.
Yeah. But the other contribution is that thing about, as you said, everybody knows Pasadena. Everybody sees Pasadena once a year at least. Everybody knows where we are. The assumption is that Pasadena is a much bigger city than it is.
It's true. You wouldn't realize. How important is JPL, Caltech, PCC?
Oh, huge.
The fine economic or educational institutions in the city.
And we have some really terrific educational institutions in the city: Caltech, Art Center, Fuller, Pasadena City College. Huntington Library is a
amazing.
research institution.
Under 150,000 people, and you have such tremendous resources.
A lot of creative people. I think there's something in the water.
I hope so. Speaking of the Art Center College of Design, the outgoing chair is going to be honored at your upcoming gala. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, every year in July we basically ceremonially pass the torch to the next chair of the board. The outgoing chair is George Filardo from Art Center. The incoming chair is Patty Wagoner from Amalgamated Bank. Interesting transition. Our board is very diverse. We have large institutions and small ones. Amalgamated Bank is a national bank, but with only a few branches. But it's the chair previously was a local chiropractor. So, in our board, small businesses, large businesses. We, have a gala this year on July 13th. Nice sit-down dinner, cocktail reception, silent auction, and we do a couple other things too. We give out scholarships, which is really terrific. We're giving out scholarships to students who are leaving Pasadena City College, going on 4-year.
Which is so important, given how difficult it is to make that happen. I mean, with fewer courses being offered at junior colleges and the cost of the 4-year system going up.
And what we do is we target foster youth. Emancipated foster youth, so we know they really needed the support. They've done a great job getting through community college and going on to 4-year college, so the support is nice there. The gas company gives us scholarships on that.
Let me ask you this in our final moments. So where do you see you having more power? And I don't mean that pejoratively, as a member of the city council or as president and CEO of the Pasadena Chamber?
It's just different. It's
come
different.
on.
Honestly, a political leadership, there is much more power in that.
I understand.
Not that I would tell anybody on the city staff, you have to do this.
Right.
But as one of the 8 decision makers,
I got it.
There's power in questions that you ask. There's power in all those.
I want to thank you so much for your candor and for really informing us about the importance and the power of the chamber movement. Again, the gala for the Pasadena Chamber is coming up on July 13th. My name is Pomerance. Thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition.